Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the next episode on the LS Swap Bronco 2 project. So I just spent the morning here getting some things kind of ready and ready to go here. Let's cover what's going on so far. All right, not too relevant, but this is what I had to do real quick. So I had made these adapters for the hoist arms here. Basically, they lift the front of the Bronco 2s from the body mount, because once you do a long arm, you can't lift from the frame. And with the short wheelbase, you're way too far back to lift from back here. So, quick modification on that. So I shortened that down, and then that also kind of sped me up here a little bit to go ahead and take off the front and rear leaf spring hangers. Now that that's gone, my hoist arm can fit right here without the leaf spring hanger in the way. So that's what's going on real quick. So we're going to start in the front end. I just took the Duff. I think they're an older version, but it's a Duff extended coil bucket for running full width axles on a B2 Ranger Explorer. I've never seen them until this build. Anyway, so now that I have room between the hoist arm and the long arm, I can start looking at the front end here. So based on a couple of the other Team Ford guys, Brian Racy and Brad Kumler, I did not ask John what his measurement was, but it should be the same as Brad's. Anyway, so from the very end of the body mount bracket, right here in front of the door, I measured back to the front of the Duff radius arm bracket, and that's 14 inches. Because I'm looking at it, and I know when we did Brad's and my old Bronco 2 Sarge and John's, once you trim the K-member here, which I'm going to do here next, the track bar bracket basically comes right in front of the flat part of the K-member to the frame side bracket. Well, just looking at how this is currently set up, the track bar is going to basically go center right to the K-member. So that's why I started kind of measuring. So the guy that set this frame up prior, I don't know what his plan was, but these radius arm brackets are too far back. So the plan is I'm going to relocate those brackets forward. So our buddy Brad, his measurement from the bracket edge to the front of his long arm mount is 10 1/4. So that's 3 3/4 inches more forward than this setup. And that was a project that we did here in the barn. And that was moving the axle about a 1/2 inch more forward than I believe what Duff's instructions are, which are always vague. So let me cover something else real quick. All right, so let's talk pitman arms real quick. I will grab part numbers and put them in the description of the video because I don't have them off the top of my head. Anyway, when you're doing a rock crawler type build, you really want to have the center of gravity as low as possible, but still give yourself at least 5 inches of up travel. That's how we set these up. So once I get everything trimmed, probably the next video or so, I'll start covering that stuff. But when the ride height of the axle and the body is lower, you got to start thinking about pitman arms. On a standard, like, let me grab my pitman arm real quick for an example. So say you got a Bronco 2 Explorer, you buy the stage 3 5.5 inch lift kit long arm. you get a drop pitman arm like this. All right. So that puts the tie rod end, which is below the arm, super low, okay? So you got to start thinking about stuff like this when you're setting your ride height lower. So on Brad's truck, and I believe Brian's, they're running virtually a flat pitman arm. Again, I'll figure out what the part number, what it's originally from on the trucks. And that raises it up quite a bit. Like, I don't know. Almost 3 inches. So anyway, this is what we've used in the past. Now the one that's on here right now is the one that I used on my 1-ton Explorer build. And this was from a, 95 or 7 to 99 F250, 350 truck, which, believe it or not, had the same spline as the Bronco 2s, F-150s, and full-size Broncos. So what I'm trying to get at here is it's still a flat pitman arm, but it's roughly an inch, almost an inch and a quarter longer than what we've been using. So the idea here is the past trucks we've done, from the body mount bracket to the long arm bracket, is 10 1/4 inches roughly. But I'm going to add an inch and a quarter longer pitman arm. So the plan is to move the radius arm bracket the inch and a quarter farther forward, which will move the axle, push the axle forward that extra inch and a quarter. Everything else that I've done in the past should all maintain the same ratio and parallel path as far as the drag length to the track bar bracket. So the goal here is to push this thing forward roughly 2 inches than what is normally done. And the rear, which I already took the axle out, but I had already pulled the 9-inch and 4-link out. So say the center of the axle is right here with the bump stop. Okay, I full stuffed the 9-inch and the 4-link all the way up. Way farther than what you would even do. And at the closest point to the factory gas tank skid plate, I can move that 9-inch back. Again, way more stuffed than we need to. Almost 4 inches. So basically what's going to happen here is we're pushing the front, the goal, push the front 2 inches farther, push the rear 4 inches farther out the back. So we're going to add 6 inches of wheelbase to what is normally a 94-inch stock wheelbase for a Bronco 2. So that's going to be, it's going to be night and day in the off-road setting. Longer wheelbase, what do they say? Like the 104 to 110 and up is like your sweet spot. So that's what the goal is here. Jeff and I have talked about and planned, and that's what we're going to start working on. So since I am working on the front end, I guess everyone's probably wondering what type of shocks or front suspension are we going to do on this truck. Well, initially we were going to stay with like a coil and a tunable bypass shock in the front to match the same brand tune or whatever, and a coilover in the rear for the 4-link. Coilovers are awesome. That's what I have on my Explorer. There's a lot more to it. Then you got to start adding bump stops, limit straps, and there's not a lot of room in most cases to do all that. I was able to achieve it on the Explorer, but the more me and Jeff were talking, he was able to get his hands on 12-inch ORIs for the front and 14-inch ORIs for the rear. Now an ORI strut, if you don't know what those are, it's basically like a 4-in-1 unit. And I'll show you what they look like here in a second. So an RI strut does not require a separate limit strap. It does not require a separate bump stop. It doesn't require springs to set ride height and all that stuff. Just straight up nitrogen charged. There's 2 cylinders, I believe. There's a top fill and a bottom fill. And you set your ride height and then you set your dampening. And they are amazing. That's what I originally wanted to do on my Explorer, but at the time it was like a 24-month wait, not to mention close to 3 times the cost of the coilover setup. But then when you start factoring in the cost of the bump stops, the bump cans, the limit straps, the time it takes to configure and figure out your valving and your spring rates and everything else, there's a trade-off. So let's see what these things look like. All right, so that is an ORI strut. It's in the compact position right now. Now they are pretty large. They have like 1.5 inches, I think, shaft on them. I mean, they're very strong. So this thing's got 12 inches of travel. And the plan is, and wow, does that look good. Looks really good. So, let me put this down. So again, the plan and goal is I'm going to utilize the inner and outer hole, and I'm going to make a nice heavy-duty bolt-on shock bracket with the 2, uprights, the 2 hoops that the bolt goes through. Nice, strong bottom shock mounts. And then I'm hoping to use more or less a shock tower that's generally all 1/4-inch plate from either Barnes 4-wheel drive or probably Barnes 4-wheel drive. And being a 12-inch stroke should be fairly easy to figure out, at least on the passenger side. The passenger side is super easy. So we'll be starting over here because the little catch on the driver's side is the little hump here for the steering box. But I don't think it's gonna be that hard to work around. So that is the plan. And then just like the Explorer and also on Brad's truck, this will be fully plated where the aftermarket outside track bar bracket will be. So, all right, so that's the plan. What's gonna be happening, what's gonna be going on with the front of this truck. Again, I've learned from my Explorer build, you definitely want to start your suspension off on the front. You want to get the front set up because the front's got so much more going on with the steering, the track bar. There's just a lot more stuff. So I'm going to get the front all set up, full bump, ride height, get all that configured. The rear, it's just going to be basically matching the ride height of the front. So, all right, catch me on the next episode, probably in a couple weeks. And like, comment, subscribe, and follow along. See you guys.